Hi, my name is Sophie, and this is my CEO, Michelle, and we're from Mofilm. If you don't know about Mofilm, we are a content creation company, and we create content by connecting brands to a diverse community of filmmakers, photographers, animators, creators all around the world. We believe that this approach allows for more meaningful, authentic content. And we also think it's great because it's locally relevant and sustainable as well. So today we are going to talk you through how you can harness the power of the community to achieve your DE&I goals. But we're going to first start off with a little film, because that's what we do best. Just a little 30-second intro to Mofilm.
So perhaps that woke everybody up a little bit as we get closer and closer to lunch. As Sophie said, I'm Michelle Vincent. I am the CEO of Mofilm. My background was actually over 20 years in a lot of media, advertising, working with brands in the big tech world, platforms like Google, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and helping brands to deliver their messages on these platforms, leveraging data to inform what creative might be best performant on these platforms, and then measuring to understand the results. Sophie's background started in traditional agency world, and after 8 years strong at Mofilm, one thing she shared with me that her passion in coming to Mofilm was the opportunity to really embody what we do best, and that's taking those voices that are often unlistened to, often unheard, and being able to amplify them and bring them to life. And I'd say we have that in common. And then what I love is seeing how that results in actually more impactful, more powerful creative for brands. And that's really what brings us to our mantra. We really truly believe that many voices are better than one. Not only do we see that in terms of the ability for us to really crack into different audiences in a way that brands often haven't tried before, or may actually align to new goals that they have from a corporate responsibility standpoint, from a DE&I standpoint. But we also see those results come through, and we'll share how some brands have actually seen positive impact for their various key performance indicators in their organizations. But true to my background, I always love a little bit of data to support it. And I figure I'm from New York, but I'm in London. Let's just take a look at the market here and some of the trends that we see just from a local standpoint. So looked across a couple of surveys before coming here and saw that 2/3 of the survey respondents, when asked whether or not brands really have a responsibility to be representative of diverse images, voices in their campaigns, 2/3 actually felt that it was. It was really something that was expected of brands to show in a lot of their assets. Yet on the other side of that, just digging into some different communities, over 70% of Black Londoners felt they weren't represented in ads. Just looking at that market, that really, a large demographic inside of the UK. 61% of British Asians also felt really underrepresented. All that really goes to show is that there's a massive opportunity that remains untapped that many of us in the audience today can take advantage of. So with that, let's blow it out globally. When diverse representation shows up in messages for audiences, the impact is transformational when it actually comes to sales and conversion results for brands. So when you were looking at this chart, the study was run by Deloitte, and they looked at the millennial audience, the Gen Z audience, I should say. That audience is now grown up. They may be some of you in this room. They are no longer teenagers, or at least my teenagers are on the tail end of that. We're already at Gen Alpha and the younger years. So discretionary income, and quite frankly, the next 50 years of pipeline for anybody that has a B2B or B2C initiative through their films. When the study was done, it showed that there was a massive increase in purchase consideration when diverse representation was seen in the various assets that they were exposed to right before they made that purchase. And I know we're really looking at some of the younger population, the Gen Z population. When you actually expand that out to millennials, expand that out to Gen X, the differences, while a little bit lower, are really still very, very strong in terms of purchase intent being highly correlated of seeing that diverse representation. Also, coming from just another proxy market, when we have these big moments that audiences can view a particular ad, a particular asset, that expectation actually translates into what they believe they're going to see when there is an expectation of different ads to be run. In the US, this is the Super Bowl for us. So this just happened in this past February. We had, I think, $7 million spots for about 113 million viewers this year. So a pretty high visibility, high viewership opportunity for brands to get their most important messages out there, perhaps their most expensive messages out there, and really stick the landing. Yet when this post-survey was run to see, well, how did everything resonate? 40% of people actually expected to see more individuals of color in these ads. 32% expected to see more women. And when it came to having to reflect on, do I remember seeing diverse representation at all? Do I remember seeing LGBTQ representation? A lot of people couldn't remember whether or not that was actually showing up in the ad. So again, bringing that back to purchase consideration, it really is important that it's clear, that it's meaningful, that it's purposeful when these messages come through. So I know we talked about a couple of individual markets, we talked about the UK, we talked about the US, but this is truly a global opportunity and a global need. I talked a bit about race, sexual orientation, and gender. But in different markets, it's going to be different. It's what's important and what matters to individuals from a diverse lens, from an inclusion lens, is really going to be on a case-by-case basis. In some markets or for some audiences, it might be based on religion or by class. So it's really important to really drill down and understand who am I trying to deliver a message to, and how can we make sure that representation shows up in the most authentic way possible so that the message really lands and matters in a way that makes sense. So this is a view of how our production process looks like from end to end, from all the way from building the content strategy to bringing the productions to life. But the sweet spot in how we're doing this from a diversity and equity and inclusion lens is right there in the middle. It's actually how we cast, 360 degrees around the camera. So sure, you can put a face in front of the camera, right? And in the US, we want to make sure that there are more people of color and representation. You can put that person in front of the camera, but it's actually behind the camera that's actually just as important. This can also carry out to experiences. We've had a pharma client, for example, that was trying to get a message across about a migraine medicine. And for them, this client had really big diversity goals, but they also wanted to be sensitive to the patients that were struggling with migraines when dealing with the director that was behind the scenes, asking them questions about their really painful and traumatic experiences. Well, casting behind the camera with a female director who happened to have family experiences, also where migraines had disrupted the life of her mother and her aunt, the people on the front of the camera felt more intimately comfortable in having this dialogue, and that translated into the film in a really, really powerful way. So it can be experiences, race, class, so many elements, as long as you're making sure that it's really authentic on both sides. Now, Sophie's going to take it from here and show us how we've actually brought this to life and how it's translated into films for some of the brands that we've worked with at Mofilm. Take it away, Sophie.
Thank you. So you've heard why it's important, and you've heard the theory about how, and yes, now we're going to show you some real life examples of how we've done it. We're going to show you 3 different examples of how we have created more meaningful, authentic storytelling by ultimately allowing audiences to have a voice and to tell the stories themselves. So the first example I wanted to share with you is the Danone brand Aptamil, the infant formula brand. They were struggling to connect with audiences, with parents around the world. They were struggling to make relevant and relatable content. And they came to us, and our approach was to recruit local directors in market. So we were looking at UK, France, Germany, Poland, and China. And that's something we always do. We always try and find local directors on the ground. But this time around, we wanted to ensure that those local directors were parents themselves and have experienced that infant feeding experience and been through all the highs and lows of having small children. The benefits of this were multi-layered. We had, because we had local directors on the ground, they added that level of cultural nuance and insight that no amount of research really could have got us to. Family culture is so different in China versus Germany, Poland, France, etc. And by having local directors on the ground, we managed to tap into those insights. There were also cost and timing efficiencies because we were running the productions in parallel. So we weren't flying people around the world, so much more sustainable as well. And thirdly, we were using real families on camera. So we were casting in front of the camera as well and making sure that infants and these babies were on set with their parents or their grandparents, and anybody who's worked with children before, you can imagine how much more authentic and easier that is. So we created a huge suite of assets for Aptamil, TVCs, stills, key visuals, etc. I think what we're going to show you before we dive into the film that we shot for them, we're going to just show you a little before, and then we're going to show you our one, which is after. So after using our approach, and just I guess wanted to kind of caveat that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the before. It's a very typical CPG brand, CPG ad, and it works well, especially if you're trying to target people around the world and trying to make it as relevant as possible. And then we'll show you our version, and you can see the approach of using local directors and real families.
Your baby starts to write their future, and breastfeeding provides them with the best start in life. Inspired by 40 years of breast milk research, our experts created our range of Aptamil follow-on milks. If you choose to move on, Aptamil follow-on milks contain our unique blend of ingredients, helping you to lay the foundations for your baby's future. Aptamil follow-on milks, their future starts today.
So yeah, absolutely fine and very typical CPG ad. And then we're going to show you our version.
Every feed has a story to tell. There are the bonding ones and the moody ones, the immune system supporting ones and the middle of the night ones when it's just the two of you. The truth is, feeding is a journey. Inspired by 50 years of breast milk research, Aptamil follow-on milks offer a range of products adapted to your baby's needs and to your story. Aptamil, your life, our science.
So I think you can see there that you've got real moments and real families. And as a mother of two young children myself, I know which one I find more relatable. We had some really great results with it. It was the top 2% of all content ever tested by the brand. So we were thrilled and the brand was thrilled. And we're now looking at moving into the next phase of that campaign. So with the next one, we just wanted to show you an example of how we flexed our approach for a market that's quite challenging to shoot in, especially for a global brand, China. Obviously, our first approach was to recruit local directors on the ground, but the COVID lockdowns in the region really prevented this, so we had to pivot. And what we ended up doing is shooting it in the UK, but really trying to ensure that casting approach was applied. So we had Chinese directors, Chinese families, Chinese cultural experts on set. And we were tapping into a unique insight for Chinese audiences that was based around mothers feeling apprehensive about returning to work specifically, and worrying that their child won't get the nourishment that they need. And yeah, even with all the challenges of not being able to shoot in market, which obviously is the preference, I think we still managed to create something special.
爱他美300斤，专属自护力，喂养不同解。投身工作，还是挂念小小的他？
轮到我接力，也想让他得到同频的照顾。
爱他美300斤德文版，双重 HMOS 配方，混合喂养之选，自护力全程在线。
我们也有了专属时刻，
方式不同，呵护不变。爱他美300斤，100年科研底气，守护宝宝专属自护力。
Okay. So the second example we wanted to share with you is for the Unilever brand Rexona, known as Shaw in the UK. This one was an agency partnership. This is something we do very frequently, partner with agencies and collaborate with their team. We work with the Unilever in-house agency for this one. And we were tasked to build on the campaign Watch Me Move, which had been developed it was all about encouraging people who had felt judged in public to move or to exercise. And they were looking at shooting in 4 different countries, so it was the UK, the US, Indonesia, and Brazil. So we cast local directors in those markets. Part of our casting process, we asked them to tell us how they had felt uncomfortable or judged in public, to help us ensure that they really understood what the assignment was. Once we had cast those directors in market, they went off and found local stories of real people who we could feature in this spot. And I think we presented about 30 different real life stories from around the globe to the client. In the end, 8 were selected for production. But again, this was something that we could run simultaneously, so we could deliver really quickly. It was delivered in about 6 weeks from beginning to end. And we went live in time for the Paralympic Games, which was great. But I think this is a great example of how a brand is staying true to the campaign platform of empowering people, empowering diverse, real people by asking them to tell their story on screen. So it just felt really holistic, and I think it made it award-winning. It's won a couple of awards. I'll share with you the spot.
Watch me move. I'm loving it. Watch me move. Yeah, watch me move. I'm loving it. Yeah, watch me move.
Okay, so the third example we wanted to share is from the Diageo brand Crown Royal Whiskey. They were really struggling to connect with black male audiences in the US. And they came to us, and we recruited, we went to a community and found some black male directors in specific urban areas, Oakland, Atlanta, New Orleans, Detroit, who then went away and found local stories, which we captured on camera. They wanted to, their platform was around black royalty, it was around celebrating local superheroes in these communities, men especially who are giving back. And this spot that we're going to show you was directed by a 24-year-old up-and-coming director who has actually since moved on to really big things, which we're really excited about. We like to try and use our platform to give up-and-coming, really talented directors access to brands that they might not necessarily be able to in the traditional setting.
Hey, big brother, can you cut me up? Hey, big brother.
Oh, man, what's good with you?
What you did for me, man, deserves a crown.
Can I jump in to say that is a true story about a barber under a bridge that would give free haircuts to poor and homeless men that really resonated with that filmmaker. And so every time I see that, I'm just so touched by seeing how it came to life in film.
We had some really great results for that one as well. There was 50% brand penetration of Black consumers in the US, which was really successful for the brand, which they were really excited about. And it actually outperformed a spot that they had that Spike Lee had directed for them that was running at the same time. And you can imagine how much more that cost to produce. So we were quite proud of that one. So there you go. That's the secret from our perspective. I think the key thing to say really is by giving diverse voices a platform, throughout the production process, in front of the camera, behind the camera, around the camera, you are making better content ultimately. And that content is also going to help you achieve your DE&I goals. So if you only remember this today, smart brands make content that's more authentic and meaningful by working with a diverse global community of creators locally and sustainably for a fast, efficient production process.